Grayson County Sheriff Norman Chaffins is this week's guest on Cougar Conversations. Hi, Sheriff. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mark. How are you?
It is currently afternoon when we're speaking. Good to see you. I want to say from the outset, I always find interviewing my friends the hardest because I have to ask questions that I already know the answer to, which makes me seem like I'm not a very good friend, but I realize not everyone knows everything about you. I do want to say we've had a lot of creme de la creme guests on Cougar Conversations this season. You're bringing the average down. Not everybody can be a great guest, so I'm still happy to have you, though.
Well, it's a good thing we're friends, Mark, because I would usually banter back on that, but since we're here for a Cougar Conversation, I think I'll refrain from what I really want to say.
I'm very grateful for that. Wilkie, Grayson County Middle School, Grayson County High School, correct?
Yes.
Then U.S. Army?
Yes.
WKU?
Yes.
KSP?
Yes.
LPD?
Yes.
GCSO?
Yes.
Did I leave anything out and did I get it out of order?
No, that's actually pretty spot on, Mark. I'm impressed.
Now, you're part of a large sibling group. Are all your siblings graduates of Grayson County High School?
Yes. My sister graduated in 1977. My oldest brother, Mike, graduated in 1979. Derek graduated in 1984. And I am the youngest of four, and I graduated in 1986.
What year was it? 1986.
Yeah.
So
86.
that makes you part of the 12th class of Grayson County High School. I recently figured out I was part of the 15th class. One of the interesting things about that, it seemed like the school was old when we were going there because it had been established for a while. But when you look at it in a span of 50 years, we were actually some of the early students to use that building.
Did you just say that when I graduated high school, the high school was only 12 years old? Is that what you meant?
That's not only what I meant, that's what I know.
My mind is just freaking out right now. I had no idea that was the case. I mean, I guess if I ever stopped and thought about the math, I guess you're right. But that's just really just makes me feel really old, Mark.
Yeah, it makes
That's
me feel
crazy.
old too. Back in the summer when I realized that I was in the 15th class, I was like, that was really early on. How would you describe your behavior as a Grayson County High School student?
Okay. I like to talk a lot. I like to be social. I like spending time with my friends, and homework and schoolwork was secondary to all of that. So, and I don't think there'd be many teachers that would disagree.
Right.
I wouldn't consider myself a troublemaker in school, but I like to have a good time, and that's something that's never changed about me.
My notes say prankster / jokester. Is that probably a pretty good label?
That is spot on. I played a lot of jokes. Some of them probably not at appropriate times, but yes. But the difference between then and today, I was usually held accountable for them every time I did it, because I realized I have to be a police officer someday, because I can't get away with doing the wrong thing. So I have to be able to do the right thing. So
that's right. You and I actually became friends as adults because we were only at Grayson County High School together for a brief period of time. So I didn't know you, but what I knew about you was you were fun-loving. You liked to instigate or at least poke at your educators and the administrators, and they still remember you for that today. So I think you've earned that reputation. You still wear it well, and you're known for that. One of the things that I do think I know about your class and your group is that they weren't doing it by the time that I got older in high school, but were you part of the Iowa exchange student program?
yes, I was.
Yeah.
That was something too. We actually went back after our exchange program and spent 2 weeks in the summer with the my host that hosted me when I was there, and that was, man, that was a lot of fun. And we still talk today. I mean, we still keep in contact, check on one another. I'm friends with them on Facebook, and it's great. And we had a good time. Went to prom. My only prom I went to wasn't at Grayson County High School. It was at Iowa, and I went to their
Wow.
prom, and so it was a good time.
Kids today don't understand that in the mid 80s, going to Iowa was like going around the world. The world was different then. Now kids have friends on the other side of the globe and they communicate, and it just wasn't that way when we were kids. So having a group of kids come in from the Midwest to our school and us sending a group out to their school was kind of a novel idea, and something, actually, I guess I'm a little envious that the program didn't continue by the time I got older.
Yeah, we had yeah, it was, I don't know what year. David White, he was awesome. I love Mr. White. Um, but I had the opportunity to go, and it was something that, you're right, it was like going on a major vacation, and we had a large time, and it was there were some things that happened then um that led me also to the career of law enforcement as well. But
Okay.
it was there were some life lessons learned on that trip, certainly.
Last week, Coach Huffman was my guest on Cougar Conversations, and I apologized to him for being a terrible football player, which I was. But being the gracious man that he is, he told me that I wasn't that bad, and I was just behind everybody else a little, and that's true. I was late to the game. But one of the things that he complimented immediately is that he mentioned you. He was crediting me, some of the other individuals that he had as players that are now leaders in the community. How did Coach Huffman and some of those other influential people at Grayson County High School, how did it prepare you for life?
Well, Mark, I'm telling you, there are so many. And here's the thing, and I played football my entire life. Okay. I did not start a varsity game until my senior year. And the reason that I stayed with it, even though I didn't get hardly any playing time in varsity my freshman, sophomore, junior year, was because of Coach Huffman, was because of Coach Bill Embry and Phil Rich and Rick Houchin. You never know what goes on in a young person's life. You don't know. I mean, I consider myself having a great childhood, but there were some things that happened in my home that was very upsetting, and things like that. And sometimes I didn't feel like coming to school, didn't feel like going to practice, but coaches were always there to motivate me to continue, tell me to keep my head up. I never really had a conversation with them about what was going on, but they knew. I think they knew the kind of the background that I came from, and certainly they were the I guess the driving force for me, even though I didn't weigh 100 pounds till the end of my sophomore year. um, they kept me motivated, and I stayed out of trouble. Football is what kept me out of trouble. And certainly, if you have strong influences, especially as a coach or even as a teacher, in your life when you're growing up, that is, to me, that is why I'm sheriff today. That is why that I consider myself to be a successful person. Not, I mean, obviously it's by choices that I made, but from football and from the teachers that I had in school, and some of them, certainly you've already mentioned Mr. Huffman, and it's amazing. I mean, I wouldn't be here without people like Mick Huffman and my football coaches, because it was just a time in my life where I needed that type of role model in my life, and they couldn't have come at a more perfect time.
Do you think football specifically made you a better soldier because you understood what your officers or your superior officers were expecting of you?
Yes, when I was growing up, I was probably 2 years behind uh, my classmates' maturity level wise, to be quite honest with you. And certainly, you learn teamwork, you learn responsibility, you learn discipline, in hard work, staying in shape in football. And when you do that consistently over a period of several years, it becomes, you get that foundation of, hey, this is the way that life is. This is the way it needs to be done. This is what you need to do to succeed. And this is how you become a better person, a better football player. And you have an adult, a male figure telling you that. It absolutely prepared me for the military and prepared me for now. Still some things. Had a lots of stuff to learn when I graduated high school, when I got in the military. But it certainly did lay that foundation for me, and I'm thankful and I'm happy. I know of a couple, Matthew Phillips and another. He joined the Marines, and man, it makes me proud when I see young football players and people like that get in the military, join the military. It's awesome.
We've talked a lot about football coaching staff. We've Embry, Huffman, Rich, Houchin, and Houchin. You've mentioned David White already. What educators and other influences maybe stand out to you the most that we either haven't mentioned or even maybe that we might not think of?
Well, I mean, it goes all the way back to elementary school. I mean, I can literally name every teacher that I had in school, and from first grade all the way to when I graduated. And I'll never forget when I became sheriff. Deborah Seaton. I think she's Fintress now, but Miss Deborah, such a beautiful lady. I mean, I had her in school, and she was just a light for me. And she kind of took me under her wing. Miss Levant Steichleather, whom I just adore as well. That was when my grandmother passed away back in second, third grade, and man, they were just there for me. And school was something that I enjoyed, but they made it more enjoyable for me when I was in elementary school. And I'll never forget, even with Barry Anderson, he was my PE teacher when I was in Wilkie. And I'll never forget the comment that he wrote in my yearbook when I was in grade school. I mean, I remember to this day. And all he did was sign it to my all-star fifth grader, Barry Anderson, and he signed that, and I was his all-star fifth grader. Now, he may have written that same note to every fifth grader that ever went through Wilkie, but I will tell you, as an adult man now, and to still remember that comment that he put in my yearbook, I've kind of tried to pass that along to other young people because it made such an impact in my life. And especially, during a time when a lot of things was going on with my family during that time. And certainly that's something that I'll never forget. And people like that, you never know what kind of impact that you have on somebody. A lot of times it may be later on in life and until you realize that. And I've told him several times that he's certainly one of my role models, and he had a strong impact on me when I was just a tot.
Well, not all the all-stars went on to wear a star like you are, and you have one on. You have one on right now. Prior from 1986 back, let's not talk about anything modern day. From 1986 back, you've talked about going to Iowa, and already clearly you have fond memories of there. Outside of the Iowa trips, do you have a fondest memory or two from 1986 and earlier at Grayson County High School?
Yes, it was one time that I'll never forget when we won. I think it was one district maybe in basketball. I was the manager for the basketball team for 4 years. Had a ball. It was such a great time for me. Got to meet. I'll never forget, we were in the elevators my freshman year, and U of L was playing NC State that year, my freshman year in high school. And I got on the elevator, and I'll never forget, it was Jim Valvano, Cozell McQueen, Derek Wittenberg, and another player. Oh gosh, can't remember his name. But anyway, they were all on the elevator, and I was just sitting there looking up, of course, looking at them, and they were joking, cutting up, treating me like they'd known me forever. I was like, that's crazy. And I got to meet Jim Valvano, and that was one of the fond memories. And that was the year that they went on to win the title, the national championship. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And so that was pretty cool. And then I think that was the same year that we may have won district. And but anyway, one of the years, I'll never forget, they had an assembly, and where no, I'm sorry, we had, when we won the district tournament, we were cutting down the nets. And you know how it was my senior year. That's right. It's my senior year. And they were cutting down the nets at the district tournament, and everybody got to cut down a part of the net except me. All the ball players did, the stats keepers did, the coaches did, and I was kind of left out down there. And I was like, and I complained about it. And I'll never forget my senior year. We had a huge assembly, and the assembly was a ladder underneath the basketball goal, and Teddy White called me out and let me go cut a piece of the net down on the basketball goal, just me. So he made that. I mean, he was being sarcastic, made it special, but that was something that that I'll never forget. And one more, probably also my senior year. We used to play horse. I may have told you this story before, but we used to play horse in PE class. Myself, Emma Sapp, Junior Sapp, and Bill Embry. Well, they would team up against me, and I probably shouldn't be saying this because, well, they're all retired now, but anyway, we would play for a Coke. So they would buy, if I won, I would get a soda. If they won, I would pay them 50 cents for a soda. And so we also play where you could tip yourself back in. So if you got an E, you could jump and tip yourself back in and get a letter. Well, I would go to tip myself back in, and either Junior or Mr. Sapp or Coach Embry would push me out of the way so I couldn't get back in the game. And they took my money my entire senior year. Okay. And Glenda Goff, she said, I can't believe you guys will get in trouble for taking his money and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, we're playing this fun. They won fair and square. I lost, money. And so the last week of my senior year, they called me in the office, and they had collected, and it was like $60, Mark. They had collected all of my change, all of my coins. And they said, here, enjoy your senior year. The rest of your senior year is like a week left. So they didn't take my money. They collected it and gave it to me at the end of the school year. So that was pretty cool. I'll never forget stuff like that. So it was neat.
So when the community gets to see the first of this, it'll be at halftime of what will be senior night at Grayson County High School. And I think all of your children are graduates of Grayson County High School, but your youngest is going through senior night tonight. What's that mean to you as a dad?
Oh, shoot. It was pretty emotional for all my kids when they graduated, but none of, they didn't play sports in high school. Grayson's kind of the only one that kind of, I guess you could say, I won't say followed in my footsteps, because he's far surpassed any footsteps I made in high school, grade wise, sports wise. It's tough, because I remember telling Lorna and I having a conversation about it and saying, gosh, can you imagine what Grayson's going to look like when he was 4 years old, when he's like a 16, 17 years old, when he's a senior in high school, what he's going to be doing. And it seems like just 2 years ago we had that conversation, and now he's I think he's a stud athlete. He's 6'1", 182 pounds or 181 pounds, and I'm like, first of all, there's nobody in my family over 5'10". Okay. The UPS guy's about 6'2", so I'm a little concerned about that. But that's a topic for another day. I'm just kidding. But no, it's going to be an emotional night. It's going to be, especially certainly for his mother. Everybody that knows me, I don't, I certainly don't. I can't remember the last time I cried, to be honest with you. But man, it's going to be a tough night for me and his mother, and it's something that I'm super proud of all my kids. I'm proud of Grayson. He has put a lot of work in the off season. I know, because I've worked with him and doing some different things. He's always wanting to find a way to get better. And I'm just so proud of him, because you can't go into something and halfway do it and expect a good outcome, expect to be successful in it. And he has taken that, and as more I think about it, and that's kind of the way I approach law enforcement. I don't go into it thinking that, hey, I'm going to get a paycheck today. I go into, how can I change something? How can I change things? How can I make things better for the people that I serve? And Grayson, he wants to know how he can get better and how he can make the team better. And I'm just proud of that. I'm proud of that. Proud of him doing that. I'm proud of him sticking with football for his entire 4 years. And I'm looking forward to looking forward to senior night. But then again, I'm not, because it's been a good ride, and I'm going to miss it.
The silver lining is that, God willing, it's not his last night in a Cougar uniform, but it is senior night as the regular season comes to a conclusion. Now, prior to the last 4 years, I want to talk to you a little bit about memories after 1986, prior to 2020, for you and Grayson County High School. And the reason that I ask that is because there are some graduates, alumnus of Grayson County High School, that they walk out the door with their diploma on graduation day, and they're off to the other side of the world, or they go to university and they don't come home, and they have very little contact. You are someone who has been protective of, proud of, and a champion of your school even after 1986. Middle school as well, but you and I had the pleasure of escorting the 2001 basketball team that was headed to the state tournament all the way to the Nelson County line when you were with the state police, and we couldn't go any further than that because that was beyond the territory that you could go. But that's a small thing that you were happy to help support your school about. But one, thank you for championing the school and being so proud of it. But are there other memories that stand out between 86 and 20 for you?
I wouldn't say, there are. I've had the opportunity to see some of my teachers from school, I guess, and try to just try to pay, I don't want to say that, I did some silly things when I was in school, and one of those was with Mr. William Dean Smith, and I may have shared this with you once before, but I put a pile of fake dog poo in front of his desk one day, and I knew he was not in a good mood, and he lit me up. He held me accountable, and he paddled me, and and I always thought about that. And he got older, and I was a trooper. I'll never forget. I was a trooper, and I saw this car in the middle of the intersection, and I knew what was getting ready to happen. They were getting ready to run the red light, and so he proceeded, and the light turned red. Traffic started to move in the other direction, and of course he almost caused an accident. I pull him over, and it's Mr. Smith, William D. Smith. And I go up to the car, and I got ready to say something, and he cut me off, and he just started berating me. And he didn't know who I was, and not that it mattered, but he said, do you not have anything better to do? He said, I'm an old man, and you're going to stop me of course, I stopped him because everybody's looking at me. Aren't you going to stop this guy? Because he just ran the red light. And he let me have it for about 2 or 3 minutes. And I just stood there, and I listened, and I listened. And I said, Mr. Smith, are you finished? He said, yeah, I'm finished. Now go back there and write your ticket. He said, I don't, how much is this going to cost me? I said, I don't know, sir. I'll be right back with you. And he started mouthing again, and I just walked back to my car, and I thought, I remembered that middle school day when he took me back there and lit me up, and kind of embarrassed me in front of the whole class. And I thought, it's time to pay it forward, time to pay the dues. So I did the paperwork. I went back up to the driver's side, and he said, well, how much is this going to cost me? And I looked at him. I said, sir, it's not going to cost you a penny. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you don't remember who I am, do you, Mr. Smith? He said, well, you look familiar. Was you one of my students? I said, yes, sir. I said, I'm Norman Chaffins. He said, oh, I remember you. And he said, well, how come you're not giving me a citation? He said, I just let you have it for about 3 minutes. And I looked at him, and I said, Mr. Smith, I said, you could have stood out here for the next 4 hours and just given me down the road and talked to me like a dog. I deserve every minute of what you just gave me, every second of the way you just talked to me, because of how I treated you when I was in school. I was a brat kid and I did things I shouldn't have done. And I told him, I said, when you took me out and you held me accountable for the mistakes that I made and you paddled me, I said, I learned my lesson. And if it hadn't been for teachers like Mr. Smith, if it hadn't been for teachers like you, Mr. Smith, I said, I wouldn't be wearing this badge today. And I said, so I want to thank you for what you did for me when I was a kid and when I was in school, for holding me accountable and making me show responsibility. And he looked at me and he smiled. He said, I wasn't expecting that. And Mr. Smith, of course, he died just a few years later, but that was one that stood out in my mind because, Mark, I'm glad we had this conversation because all I ever wanted to do when I left, I knew I was going to go away from Grayson County for a little while, but I always knew I was going to come back. And I think that if more teachers and more leaders in our community that are born and raised in this community would recognize that young people, I want them to come back. I wanted to come back. I knew that I would come back, and I wanted to make an impact on people because I saw how it affected me. I just wanted to make an impact on people like I was made, like they did for me when I was a kid. And that's just something I've always wanted to do, and I don't think I'll ever stop doing it.
Isn't it an interesting juxtaposition how when you're a student at the school, you think everybody's out to get you and they're coming down on you and they're hard and they're being tough. But when you get to be our age now and you get to be your mid 50s, you really are grateful for what those people, those educators invested in you as a young person. You might not even realize it at 35, but at 55, you certainly do.
Absolutely. And that's something that, um, there's a lot of truth when people say that, you're gonna learn. It takes a while before you learn that lesson. But you look back on things and you realize that, if it's when there's a lot of truth when people say, when it's like kind of like our parents told us, when I stop getting on to you when you make a mistake or when you do something in school that we overlook and we just say, okay, let's push them on, that's when you need to start to worry. And I see more and more of that sometimes too in today's world, not just at school but in other things too. We kind of let things go, and I think accountability has gone out the door. And I'll tell you, and I say this, I realized it probably a lot quicker than anyone else. And because I did some stupid stuff when I was younger and I regret some of it, but I wouldn't change anything because, even though it was stressful, even though it, made me sad and some of the things that I saw or some of the things that happened. And I look back on it, it's what made me who I am today. My life experiences, it made me the way I am today. And it may not, some people may not like it, but I just look back and I see that I was that young kid. I always remember who I am, where I came from, and what I came from, and that's something that'll never leave me.
As always, thanks for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again. Norman Chaffins, the sheriff of Grayson County, has been our guest on Cougar Conversations.